How do we get wealth? We answer that question every time we sing the national anthem. It is wealth for toil, right? If I go out to a farm and start digging a hole, I can basically, with toil and with the dirt and the rain, I can build a dam, then I can build irrigation, then I can grow crops, right? That comes from hard sweat. That is all stuff that comes out of thin air. So what we want to do at People First is we want to issue shares, or the equivalent of infrastructure bonds. So we're going to issue one share and call it untapped wealth. It is going to own an infrastructure bank owned by the people of Australia via the federal government. And by an act of parliament, it can only issue infrastructure bonds, which is the equivalent of shares, for 7 sovereign assets: dams, power stations, tunnels, rail, ports, airports, and telecommunications. And what happens is we'll issue a billion, if you build a dam for $1 billion today, I'm just going to go slightly off on a tangent here. If we build a dam for $1 billion today and we borrow that money from offshore, which is what we do, that means the first $1 billion in wealth we create, we have to repay offshore because we're using another country's printing press. We then have to pay at least another $1 billion in interest, let's say 25 years at 4%. We've just given up $2 billion worth of capital, of wealth, because we don't understand capital management, right? Capital management, when you're dealing with a business, is king, okay? And we have to understand we have equity over all these resources. So if we issued a bond to the Queensland state government to build a dam and you wouldn't issue $1 billion bond, you'd just pay $5 million a week to pay for concrete, wages, the D10s to build the dam or whatever. So a lot of that money would be generating profits. A lot of that money would be coming straight back to Canberra in the form of taxes anyway, right? And employing people, and then you'd get payroll tax, you'd get GST, etc., etc. So after, say, 2 years of dam construction, you'll end up with $2 billion in work in progress. You convert that to an asset. But over the next 50 years, that loan is repaid back to the federal government. The federal government collects interest from the infrastructure bank, and that it then goes into a development bank that then relends the profits to councils, so that councils don't have to pay interest to private banks, so that way we lower rates, and we are basically keeping the cost of finance in our own country. So we are not paying other countries to use interest to use our own currency or to use someone else's currencies, and we're retaining the capital wealth, the capital, the true wealth, i.e. capital, equity capital, that is generated when that rain falls from the sky every year. So if we drop a bull in a paddock with 20 cows, and if he's any good as a bull and we come back next year and we've got 15, 20 calves, that is wealth coming out of the sky every year. We just need to make sure that wealth is directed back to us and stays in our country, so it goes as dividends to our children and not as interest offshore.